Hello everyone, welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. It's finally time that we're starting to see the weapons for the hunted. We first saw Syndra's weapon, the Kunai of Retribution. Currently the other weapons have not been shown just yet, so I'm going to be recording these as they get shown, and hopefully by Thursday we will get all of the weapons. But since we have Syndra's weapon, I can record it now, which this was the weapon that we all were waiting on. Arakni probably doesn't need weapons. Assassin just has so many other good weapons that you don't really need new ones. And Fang's weapons are probably just going to be pretty basic, like 1 or 2 power. If they're 1 base, they'll increase their power some way, and they'll probably get go again some way. Actually, Fang gives them go again, right? Or Fang makes them free. Some other effect to give it go again. You're warrior. You have so many effects that give stuff go again. But Syndra is a hero that kind of depends on her weapons, considering that she is Phi, but about daggers instead of Phoenix Flame. So her weapon really mattered. And we got Kunai of Retribution, which also people were looking for something that could spice Phi up, because a new draconic weapon would make Phi really good. But obviously we're not going to be running these in Phi, but we'll go over that when we get to them. So let's start off with what Syndra actually does. Syndra, Drasai of Retribution, is a royal draconic hero. Royal does actually matter, because Regicide and, more importantly, Tome of Imperial Flame. She is a 40 health, 4 intellect hero. Other than that, so standard. She has 2 abilities. Whenever you hit a marked hero, you create a fealty token. Fealty tokens are a draconic token. You can destroy them at instant speed to make the next card you play draconic. At the beginning of your end phase, if you haven't made a fealty token or played a draconic card this turn, you destroy the fealty token. Which, you're an aggro deck, I'd hope you would play a draconic card every turn. Those matter for a few effects we'll talk about later, but that is not the main effect you're looking for Syndra. Syndra's other ability is a once per turn instant effect that has you pay 3 resources to equip up to 2 draconic daggers from your graveyard, and this ability costs 1 less for each draconic chain link you control, which will probably be a lot, because this is the same hero class as Phi, who is also all about chain links. Draconic itself is about 2 things: having high chain links and playing draconic cards, which this wants you to do both. So this ability compared to Phi is obviously very different. Phi can play a lot of cards that are about pumping up actual attack actions, since he gets his Phoenix Flame every turn. But Syndra gets to do a lot of things also based on daggers, which are the ones she's playing, and off of weapons, which I find pretty interesting. A very different form of Phi. With that, we finally saw her new weapon, the Kunai of Retribution. This is a draconic ninja weapon. It's a one-handed dagger and has 1 power. It's a once per turn action to pay a resource to attack with go again, and you destroy the kunai when the combat chain closes, which is very important. When the chain closes, which means if you close the chain, you'll have to pay 3 for these daggers to bring them back, unless you attack again. Now, the way that works, there are 2 ways that people will use Syndra's ability. The first is that open of you have a hand with some good draconic attacks, but none of them really care about, your chain links right away. So like Brand with Cinderclaw, like Blaze Headlong, the old draconics. You'll start with the Kunai of Retribution, then break the chain, so later down the line in the turn, you can get the Kunais back, either to swing with them again, or to keep them for next turn. Your standard turns. But the main way these will be used, obviously, the actual synergistic way, is to play things that'll care about these daggers hitting, something like or pump them up. So like spreading flames, these daggers are incredibly good with spreading flames because spreading flames will come in. The first dagger after will see, hey, there's a chain link of 2 now. I have 1 power. I'll come in for 2. The second dagger would do the same thing. And then at that point, any 3 power attack you play is going to be pumped up because you have 3 draconic chain links already. So you can go into a Rising Resentment, a Brand with Cinderclaw, into literally anything else at that point, and that only costs you 2 cards, being the Spreading Flames and the blue pitch used for the kunai. Or Tome of Imperial Flame, plus Flamescale Furnace. We'll talk about that soon. So I think these kunais are very good. Now, obviously, they're not going to be usable in Fi, because Fi wants to use his weapons turn after turn if he's playing Kodachis, and these will destroy themselves, and he has no way to get them back. So these are a perfect design for Syndra, I feel, because they're daggers that can easily go to the graveyard for her ability to bring them back. You don't need any other effect to destroy them. However, of course, there are going to be effects we play to destroy them, the most important being Flick Knives. Notably, kunai say they destroy at the end of the combat chain. Flick Knives only let you not throw the dagger if it's the active chain link, which means we can come in with a dagger, opponent blocks it or not, doesn't matter. We come in with another attack, and then we immediately flick the dagger that we just threw. This will alleviate the downside of having to destroy the dagger at the end of the chain, because we already destroyed the dagger, and then Syndra gets to bring them back. Finally, Ninja has a good use for Flick Knives. Of course, these cards are Assassin and Ninja hybrid. I bet a lot of you forgot about that. You can play these inside of Syndra. The other equipment that I think is a slam dunk is just going to be Flamescale Furnace for both of these Draconic heroes because they are both Royal. Why does Royal matter? Well, first of all, 5 plays Flamescale Furnace because it's 3 health. That's pretty good. He doesn't really want to ever activate the ability, but you actually will inside of Syndra because of Tome of Imperial Flame, one of the books that was not burned, probably because this looks like it's made of dragon scales and probably can't be burned. This is a 0-cost red draconic action. It has no block, and it says draw a card. If you are Royal, instead draw 2 cards. You may pitch 2 red cards. If you don't, banish your hand. You gain the resources for the cards pitched this way, and then it has go again. This was a card that was printed originally for Dromai alongside the Emperor, which the Emperor used Furnace to get a CNC out of his deck, but Dromai and CC mainly played this so she could activate Flamescale Furnace, get 3 resource off just a red. You didn't need to play any other blues. I think you just played Passing Mirage as the only blue in that deck. And you played the Crown of Dominion, I believe, is the Royal one, to make your hero Royal. But since these heroes are base Royal, you don't need to play that helmet, which means I did not put it here. But Mask of Momentum is like the best helmet you can play because you are going to have so many chain links. I didn't put it there because it's pretty obvious. And also, I think we could get a new Draconic headpiece this set. These are the only 2 that are like, they're probably not making a replacement. I don't see them replacing Flick Knives or Flamescale Furnace. So, they could make a new mask. So, but you do want Mask of Momentum while we're here talking about the equipment. But Tome of Imperial Flame, giving you that 2 resource, you've played a red card. You've only lost 1 card, by the way, because you're playing this drawing 2, pitching 2, which means you pretty much just pitched a blue anyway, because the Flamescale Furnace lets you, since you played a red card, you have 2 red cards in your pitch, you spend 1 of that resource to gain 2, which means now you have enough to swing with both kunais and then still play a 1-cost attack. Tome into Furnace lets you do that spreading flames into kunai's line off just the 1 tome, and you got the fixture hand because you're seeing 2 cards with the Tome of Imperial Flame, which is incredibly powerful. Just because the rest of the deck is all going to be free things that you can just come in with right after that. Moving on to some of the, I think, just slam dunk cards we're playing in Syndra almost always. Some of these aren't slam dunk. Obviously, we already talked about Tome and Spreading Flames. I think these are going to be at 3 in every single Syndra list. Some cards that I also think are going to be at 3 in every list. Blaze Headlong, just because it's one of the best Draconic cards in the entire game. 0 for 4. If we played another red card, it has go again. Our whole deck's red. Brand with Cinderclaw, specifically because, not because it gives us more Draconic chain links. This card was really good in Fi because it could turn Kodachi's Draconic, but I think this card is really good in Syndra because there are a bunch of cards that we want to make Draconic. We currently don't have many ways to mark the opposing hero outside of the Proclamation of Vengeance, which means either we're going to get more effects to mark, or fealty tokens are going to be very rare because this card's terrible. Even against Arakni, I think this card's bad. But we'll talk about that a little bit, because there is a card that kind of redeems it, and why I hope we get some other marking effects. But Brand with Cinderclaw lets you turn your other things Draconic, which is really important because there are a lot of cards that have synergy with those fealty tokens, and this is something that only Syndra gets to do. Fang doesn't get to do that. I guess Fi gets to do it as well, which is good. Other cards that are slam dunks, Bleed Out. This card is actually just gas. We're guaranteeing 1 damage every turn with our Flick Knives, so this can come in for 1, and our opponent's not going to block the daggers. So this will just be another 0 for 4 go again that we just get to play out every turn. It's very, very good. Alongside that, Blood Runs Deep. This is a new card that we saw in the Hunted already. It's only a 2 power, but it is a 3 block with go again, which is really good. It costs 1 less for each Draconic chain link we control, so it's free. The daggers will be those chain links. And when it attacks, each dagger we control does 1 to the hero we're attacking, and if we dealt damage with the dagger's destroyed, and it's considered hit. Makes our bleed outs free if they decided to block the kunais, and it breaks both of our daggers mid-chain to let us pick them back up with Syndra, and those are new instances of daggers, so they can attack again if we had the resource to do that. Some other just slam cards. Stab Wound. Every dagger that we deal with damage with is going to be considered hit. If we go kunai, flick the first kunai, and all of them hit, that's 3 dagger hits. Stab Wound does 3 bonus damage. Very powerful. Stab Wound is going to be like one of the only blues that we play. This is going to be one of the best ones. It's also a 3 block. Ravenous Rabble. Deck's going to be all red. I am building a Syndra list right now with the cards we have because I think Syndra might be powerful enough with the base Draconic cards already. Obviously, she'll get better as we see more cards in the set. But the deck literally has, I don't see it changing, only playing like 6 blues total. I think the only blues you ever want to be playing in Syndra are Stab Wound, Warmonger's Diplomacy, and possibly, well, maybe not Warmonger's Diplomacy. That one's up in the air because you want to be on Tome, and it hurts your Tome, but also Blue Brand with Cinderclaw I think is pretty good. And there might be like 1 or 2 niche blues, but I don't think you're ever going above 6. Which makes Ravenous Rabble incredibly potent, because you're not playing yellows either. There will probably be 0 yellows in this deck at all, which means Rabble will be 0 for 4, almost always. Lava Burst, we're a high chain link deck. I don't know if this one's a must-play, but I think it will be played. Rising Resentment, if we play any 1-cost attacks that aren't Spreading Flames, because we want to start with that, it'll be pretty good. And then the last card, Uprising, I think is really good. It gives our next 4 Draconic attacks plus 1. So it's kind of a 0 for 4, just a little spread out. It makes our kunais 2. I think it's something to look at. But definitely Spreading Flames, Tome, Blaze, Bleed Out, Blood Runs Deep, and Rabble are all slam. Auto includes possibly Stab Wound and Brand with Cinderclaw as well. Some other things Syndra gets access to, if we look in the inventory, obviously, Proclamation of Vengeance is there to mark. I hope we get another way to mark the opposing hero because this card is really bad. I don't want to play it against any matchup except Arakni, and even into Arakni, it's not even that good. And then, but the reason why we might want to mark opposing heroes is because of this cycle. I only have for the Draci here because I think it's the best one, but there is a Popper and a 1 for 5, which are good stat lines. But this is a 0 for 4 3 block for the Draci. It's a Draconic action. It's an attack, of course. And when it attacks a marked hero, we make a fealty token. So this is a great chain ender. It doesn't have go again. There's probably not going to be many. It's probably not a reason to want to give it go again. We technically can. I didn't put Snatch or Snapdragon Scalers up here because those are just base ninja things, right? Like, obviously, we can Snapdragon Scalers these. But we're not going to. We're going to close the chain with this. So on our next turn, we have a fealty token. That'll let us turn something like a Rabble or a Bleed Out or any of these, if they're Draconic attacks, into Draconic so we can get more value out of them. These attacks, the arts of the dragons, they are all revealed already from the set. Art of Dragon Blood is, I think, the best one. It's a 0 for 4 with 3 block. But if it's Draconic, it'll get go again, and our next 3 Draconic cards we play cost 1 less. That effect doesn't really matter all too much right now. There isn't too many 1-cost Draconic cards we actually want to be playing, but the fact that it's a 0 for 4 go again, 3 block, if we have that fealty token, or it follows a Brand with Center Claw, is incredibly potent. The other 3 Art of Dragons, Claw, Fire, and Scale, are all just bonus effects if they're Draconic. Claw gains an on-hit of hero to destroy their arsenal if it's Draconic. Fire just does 2 damage on attack if it's Draconic. This card I think you could see in sideboards to help beat out some more defensive decks because this is damage they can't stop unless they have a hard prevention. And Scale is an on-hit to -1 counter on equipment and then destroy it if it's at 0, which is good, right? I'm not going to say it's bad. We see Liquefy. People played Liquefy at some point. That's also Draconic. I think this is better since it's an actual attack, but it does cost 1, which we'll have the resources for, most likely if we Tome and Furnace, which will be good. The last things I want to talk about for Syndra are some more dagger synergy cards. I don't think these will see play, but they are something to note. Hurl is a 0 for 3 that just lets us pay 1 to flick a dagger. I think it's a fair choice that someone could make alongside Flick Knives and the 1 resource. You could throw both daggers and then bring them both back with Syndra. So there's a reason Hurl is here. I think it's the most potent of the 4 in this section. So I think Hurl is probably the only one that has a chance, but I wanted to talk about the other ones. Plunge is a 1 for 3 that gives our next dagger +1. It's just a 1 for 4 pretty much. It's spread, which is a little worse, but it's a notable card that might see play. Concealed Blade lets us get more daggers from our inventory. This will only really see play if dagger banishment becomes important. I could see a world where this takes 1 of your blue slots, and then you play a 3rd dagger or Kunai of Retribution in your sideboard, so you can Concealed Blade it back if you're playing against something like a new that can banish the dagger from our graveyard. Or I believe Melting Point also banishes. That might be a card we see a little more of from the Rangers. And Knives Out, because it just gives our daggers +1, which again, probably won't see much play, but is notable in some sense. Of course, I don't have Warmongers down here. Warmongers, I think, is a blue you can see in this deck. However, it does interact with your Tome. You're probably not playing Uprising, but I thought it would be here because it is a 0 for 4. It does make sense. But mainly, it's going to mess with your Tome. So probably if you're a Warmongers deck, you're not on Tome. But I think you're on Tome pretty much all the time, just from how strong Tome is with Furnace. And the same thing goes for Fang. I'll probably put it in with Fang and talk about it with Fang once we see more cards, because obviously Tome right now is synergizing with a bunch of ninja cards here. We need to see how it works with a bunch of the warrior cards. But I think for just what Syndra has now off just this weapon being shown, she's incredibly powerful. She gets so much true damage that it's just going to be so hard for a slower deck to beat her. I don't know how good her actual damage will be, which is notable because other aggro decks might be a good matchup into Syndra if her base damage is not high enough. But considering LSS wants new aggro decks to be potent, I assume that her damage is going to be higher than the current aggro deck, which would make her into an incredibly powerful aggro deck, or at least comparable, which currently we need to look at Aurora, who is about a 15-ish damage turn, I believe, on average. And Syndra just throwing out 4 Draconic attacks and using a Flick Knives is 13. 4 3-power Draconic attacks and throwing a Flick Knives is 13, but obviously it's really dependent. I think it's potentially stronger because of the mask draw as well, and some of your attacks are 4, like Blaze Headlong, Bleed Out. So I think she's close to Aurora's strength, possibly, which is very good since it's a new aggro deck. We need to pay attention to that. But again, slow decks, very hard for Syndra to lose to because you can't block her out. She's going to do 1 or 2 damage every turn guaranteed, and you're not going to block the daggers, so it's going to be more and more every turn. So incredibly powerful hero just from the Kunai Retribution being revealed. Hopefully, before this video goes up, the other weapons are revealed, so I don't have, at least Fangs. Arakni probably doesn't matter. I assume there's going to be a generic way to mark heroes as well being shown because all of the heroes care about it, kind of. But we'll have to see. But with that, that's going to be Syndra done. Next, let's take a look at what Fang is cooking up with some of his cards. Moving on to Fang. Fang is a 40 health, 4 intellect Draconic warrior hero. He is royal, just like Syndra, so you can do Tome Furnace shenanigans. We'll talk about that a little bit. He has that same on hit of marked hero make a fealty token ability, which is really important because he really cares about those tokens since the second ability makes it so your daggers cost 1 less to use if you have 3 fealty tokens in play. So you really care about getting that mark, getting those tokens, because your weapons are very powerful. The Obsidian Fire Vein is a 1-for-1 dagger, but if you have a Draconic card in this chain link, you get 1 power and go again. So this effect triggers on reactions because you need to do it this specific chain link. So we have 1 reaction right now, which is the Long Whisker Loyalty. This card gives, for each of your Draconic chain links, a dagger. You choose 1, you can choose all 3 if you have 3. Give a dagger +2. You can swing an extra time with the dagger, and your next dagger marks on hit, which is really good because you want the fealty tokens. If you can get more fealty tokens, you can actually use fealty tokens on other reactions, on something like Blade Flurry, to make it Draconic to trigger the Obsidian Fire Vein. Now, there are definitely going to be choices on which daggers you want to play. I think you always play 1 Obsidian Fire Vein, but since you might not always be able to guarantee that both get go again, I've seen people talk about Quicksilver Dagger. However, personally, I feel like having multiple of the Obsidian Fire Vein is the way to go. If you bring Quicksilver Dagger, your plan is going to be Fire Vein, react on it, come in with whatever else, the dagger, immediately after, and then play something else after. But I think Fang isn't going to have the resources for that to play anything meaningful after. I think the way the deck's going to play out is you're going to go Fire Vein into a reaction into your attacks, say the Blaze Headlong or the Ravenous Rabble, and then end on the second weapon. And if you have something like an In the Swing, or you played a Blade Flurry early, then you can pump up the second weapon. So I think 2 Obsidian Fire Vein is going to be the way to go, but people definitely will try the Quicksilver Dagger. I don't have it up here, for instance, but I do like 2 Fire Veins, personally. I think that works a little better. For the helmets, there's no helmet that you really want to be playing, so you're just going to play the generic options since they're all really good anyway. Balance and Crown are just the two best helmets in the game, realistically, unless you're like Ninja or Brute, or most Wizards don't play them. So, like, one of those three classes. Oh, actually, Runeblade now. So, Brute, Runeblade, Wizard, and Ninja are like the only four that won't play the generic helmets, and this is the Warrior, so obviously you're going to be playing a generic helmet. And we also could get one in this set. Mainly the chest pieces, I think, are going to be the main option for people to choose. I think the rest of the equipment's pretty set in stone, so we'll talk about the chest pieces for now. There are obviously Flamescale Furnace is the main option. We talked about this one with Syndra. Since Fang is Royal, Tome is immediately active, drawing you 2 cards. This will let you fix your hand, since this is a deck that wants a reaction, or / draconic reaction to use on the Obsidian Fire Vein. You want to be able to filter your hand, as well as if you're pre-Fang effect, because eventually late game, you're going to go Fire Vein, reaction, attack, 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 Fire Vein. You're going to have those insane 5-length chains, and you're going to want the Tome to help filter those hands, because it might not be that, or early game you want Tome to filter those hands so you can get to the point where you have those tokens and then just start attacking. But Tome, you need the resources. Flamescale Furnace gives you the resources to swing with the Fire Vein and then play a 1-cost thing. Like, I don't have any 1-cost reactions here, but there definitely are some that you might want to end up playing. The other chess piece could be a Grains of Blood Spill. This one just gives you extra resources if you pay a resource when a weapon hits, which is really good. They block the same as Flamescale Furnace, which is obviously a good thing since you're going to generally pick one or the other. I don't think Fang is going to be a Tunic deck. I think you're always going to be on the Furnace or the Grains of Blood Spill. So either option. I personally like Furnace more because I think you're going to definitely be a Tome deck. But if the lists are a little more blue heavy and you're not on Tome or Rabble, I think Grains of Blood Spill is the better option, since that can let you fuel next turns if you have any extra resource. For gloves, I realistically think there's only one option, which is Brave Force Bracers. But if you didn't have them, you could play Gallantry Guilds, which are just 1 resource to destroy them. Your weapons get +1 this turn, and then it has Battle 1 health. So it's just worse than Brave Forge Bracers in most situations, but I think it's okay. And then Brave Forge Bracers are a once per turn action to give your next weapon attack +1, but only if you've attacked with a weapon and have hit with it this turn, which your weapons are a little weaker if your opponent's blocking it, which obviously your first weapon is going to get pumped, so they'd have to put at least 4 into it on most situations, pretty much all of them, to actually block it. So it's very easy to hit with the weapon on this hero, so you'll easily be able to give these the bonus if you are a little more of a blue heavier deck, which I think, even though this is a Rabble Tome type list, I think you're going to be playing more blues. I only have 1 in here, but maybe about 12. That's what Fi generally ends up playing, and he has a few important 1-cost attacks that he wants to play. The other Warrior gloves specify swords, so you can't use them in Fang. You have to use the Brave Force Bracers, unless, of course, there's a new one that gets printed, but they only work on swords. The Iron Song verses do not work on daggers. So this is really your only option, but I still think it's good. I think it's a powerful option, especially since these daggers can naturally gain and go again. I think it's pretty great. Finally, there's only one option for your boots. It's Valiant Dynamos. You're a innate 2 one-handed weapons character, Valiant Dynamos. You just want that. You're going to get 2 swings every turn, near guaranteed. This will give you 1 health every turn in the game. It's incredibly powerful. There's more equipment destruction now than ever, especially in the Hunted, with a bunch of new Draconic cards that do so, as well as Assassin is a class that can destroy equipment, but Valiant Dynamo is still just the best option. For actual cards you want to be playing, we already talked about Tome with Syndra and how this is good. We talked about Rabble a bit. We're a more red line based deck. Again, Vi plays this. Fang's probably going to be a deck sitting at around 12-ish blues, so it's perfectly fine to still play Rabble. Some cards that aren't new that I think Fang is just going to auto-include. Slice and Dice gives your first swing +1, your second swing +3. perfect if you only have one pump. Say your hand is like Slice and Dice, Blade Flurry, and like an Inertia, or a Fealty, sorry, and you have your free swings. You can Fire Vein, or Slice and Dice, Fire Vein, Blade Flurry for 5, and then on your next swing you'll get +5 from the Blade Flurry and the Slice and Dice, and the Fire Vein will come in for 6, even without another reaction, which is a great 11 power 2-card hand if you have 4 Fealty tokens, which we don't have any like super consistent ways to mark. Fang does have a card that marks, Long Whisker Loyalty, which we'll talk about. But once we get more mark effects, it'll definitely be a lot better. For our attacks, Blaze Headlong is obviously a good one, and for the Draysai, again, is here. If it's attacking a Mark II, we make a Fealty token. We want to make those Fealty tokens. Other reactions in the swing. I believe I already talked about this a little bit, but since we're a deck that wants to swing with both weapons in the swing is really good. The new cards. Proclamation of Vengeance lets us mark a hero. This one's a little better in Fang since he really cares about the Fealty tokens, unlike Syndra, who I think will just use them to make some cards draconic, where Fang really wants 3 in play. Long Whisker Loyalty is a really, really good card. I think you never play Fang without it. It says, for each Draconic chain link you control, you can choose 1, you can give a dagger +2, you can attack an additional time with a dagger, and you can make the next time a dagger hits a hero this turn, it marks them, which will help you get more Fealty tokens. It's a base Draconic react, which means it's really good with the Fire Veins. Even it on itself, with just a Fire Vein as the only chain link, it pumps it up to 4. So, really powerful there. This card is extremely good. The last cards we need to talk about are some other cards that were already revealed, mainly Flurry Stance and Power Stance. I will talk about Agility Stance in a second. Flurry Stance is a 0-cost red 3-block. It is Go Again, and it says at the start of your turn, destroy it, and then you can attack an additional time with each dagger you control. Very powerful with Fang's ability, making every dagger free, lets you just come in, sort of a build your own blood on her hands. Power Stance is the same, just instead of the additional attack, it's +1 power and it's blue. Another very good one. I think you're always going to be including this one because it's a 2 minimum damage pump and it's a blue and it blocks 3. We have Agility Stance down towards the bottom. This one gives Go Again instead of the additional attack or the +1. I think this one's a little weaker because Warrior already has so many ways to give daggers Go Again, especially considering the weapon itself already has Go Again. But on the turns where you do have a Flurry Stance active, it can be difficult to give all of your daggers Go Again with the Fire Veins effect. Even if they're just free, even if they're not free, if you do it early, you have to pay for each one. But even if they are free with Fang's ability, it can be hard. So Agility Stance might not see play at 3 copies like I think the other ones could. I think Power Stance is definitely the most powerful. I think Flurry Stance definitely has a chance. I think Agility Stance might be a 1 or 2 of, only because you want it on turns you have Flurry Stance, but you might not need it every turn you have Flurry Stance. And then Lay Low, which it can hurt your blue-red count for Rabble, but it's it's a yellow sort of 4D react. Obviously you can't play it if you're marked, but if you're getting attacked by someone who is marked, you can use this to block 3, and then the next thing they throw at you will be -1 power. So a little better against aggro mirrors, except not if you're marked. Please don't play this versus a deck that's going to mark you. And then the last card I want to talk about is Uprising. Notably because it does pump the weapons, but it can't give your weapons Go Again, which is why it's down here. I don't think it'll be an include, but it is something to think of because it is a 0 for 4. Card not in here. Any like Lava Burst, any Rupture effect could be playable. I just don't know how wide Fang's chains are going to be. If he's just, the good attacks, the Rabble Blaze, and then weapons, or is he more of actually attacks, and then you use your weapons to make the D reacts, treated as attacks. I think that could be a use as well. If you go, attack, dagger, and then you react on the dagger and you go to the other dagger, you're sort of treating them like normal attacks and not like just things to use your, mainly just things to use your reactions on, not playing the normal warrior game plan. But Fang doesn't have too much to talk about that's older, like Syndra did, since Syndra already has Draconic Ninja from Fi. Fang is a new combination. Yes, Emperor exists, but Emperor didn't have any Draconic Warrior cards printed for him. But that is going to be it for Fang. I think Fang is really cool. Personally, my favorite of the set, looking at these weapons. I think all three heroes in the set are really cool. Fang definitely has the most to improve, though, because he doesn't have any older card pools. He doesn't have the absolutely stacked Assassin card pool or the really good Fi card pool. So we'll have to wait and see for what Fang gets this set. But with that, let's move on to the last brand new hero in the set, the brand new Arakni. Finally, let's take a look at Arakni. Arakni Marionette is a 4 intellect, 40 health chaos assassin hero. They have the two abilities of your stealth attacks that are attacking a marked hero get +1, and when this hits, this gets go again. As well as at the beginning of your end phase, if an opponent is marked, you become a random agent of chaos. Your health does not change. Before we read the agents of chaos, since marking is removed every time you hit, you'll need to find multiple ways to mark. That's the same as every other hero. But this, I think, is the strongest ability of the when you hit a marked hero stuff. The other two just make an inertia token, which is good for them. But the fact that this gives you not only damage, since most stealth cards are 3 power, you get the breakpoint, as well as the hit to gain the go again is very good, because you'll get to play another attack after, hopefully one that'll mark the opponent, because you want your opponent to be marked at the end of the turn, but if you hit them, then you won't be able to become a different agent of chaos, which you really want to do, because they're very good. So there are 6 agents of chaos, so you can roll a d6, choose in some random way. It doesn't count as rolling a die, because the text doesn't tell you to roll a die, so you can't gamblers, but find some way to pick 1 through 6. And then we have the 6 Arachnis. So Arakni Black Widow is on 1. All of them have 4 intellect, by the way. And all of them have a reaction, well, except 1. Or I guess 6. Except 6. 6 doesn't. But Arakni Black Widow, 1 through 5, all have a reaction to discard an assassin card, and they all do a different thing. So Arakni Black Widow lets you, once per turn as a reaction, discard an assassin card to give an assassin attack +3. And if that attack has stealth, it gets, when this hits a hero, they banish a card from their hand. It is a good disruptive effect. I like the effect on these where it lets you turn your assassin cards into reactions, because none of them are going to have go again, since you won't have the original Arakni Marionette's effect to give it go again. You're going to give them a different effect, and this is why you want stealth cards as well as the other Arakni, but you can, or the Arakni Marionette, but you can use any assassin card to actually get this effect off, which I think is really good. And it's a good disruptive effect. And at the end of the turn, you'll return to the Brood, which means you go back to the base hero. Arakni Funnel Web is number 2. It is the same discard to give an assassin attack +3. And then if that attack was stealthed, the hero you hit banishes the card in their arsenal. So very similar to Black Widow, but instead of hand, it's arsenal. Orb-Weaver makes your Graphene Shell Array, I don't know how to pronounce this word, cost 1 less to activate, which is a weapon. You can, at instant speed this time, instead of a reaction, discard an assassin card to equip a Graphene Shell Array token. And then your next stealth attack gets +3. So this one lets you equip the token that I do not believe we know what it does yet, but I would assume it's a weapon that marks. I will look to see if we do know what it is. I don't think we do. It's not down here. So we don't know what that does yet. I assume it's another dagger. Probably similar to Mark of the Huntsman, which is the weapon we'll talk about after all the demi-heroes. So that's a pretty good effect, lets you get another weapon, because the Mark of the Huntsman does destroy itself to mark. So I assume hopefully these would mark, or just be a replacement dagger. And then it still gives you that pump, you just have to do it before, instead of as you're attacking. Arakni Redback is a reaction that gives +3, and if the attack has stealth, go again. So if you want that aggressive game plan, this is the one you want to get. Tarantula makes your daggers make the opponent lose 1 life on hit, which matters for even for like flick knives and such, and has its reaction to give a dagger +3 and not any assassin attack. You can use the pump on the daggers, but you won't get the stealth effect since they are assassin, but this one only targets daggers. And then finally, Arakni Trapdoor is when you become this Arakni, you can search your deck for a card face down, and then if it's a trap, you can play it until the start of your next turn. So you pretty much have to get a trap. There's only 3 traps you have access to, and only 2 of them are playable, and I'd say only 1 of them is really good, but both of them will probably see play in this deck. At least at 2 copies, I'd think. You'd play 2 of each. And if you ever become Trapdoor, you get 3 extra health. So instead of being 3 on aggro, it's 3 on defense, which is fine. I think it's the worst one, but you still have to play for it because it's still really good. Looking at the weapon now, that we skipped over because it's the way you are supposed to mark them, I guess. Mark of the Huntsman is a 2 cost to attack with go again, 1 power dagger, the same as every other assassin dagger. When it hits a hero, you may choose to destroy this and mark that hero, and if it's attacking a marked hero, it gets +1. Now, the thing with this dagger that I'm not sure of, how does it interact with flicking it? Can you get the mark effect? Because if you can get the mark effect, you can use flick knives to throw the dagger, get the mark, and then Arakni Marionette will pump it by 1 and give it go again, because they'll be marked. Or can you not destroy it, because this will check after the flick knives destroys it? The reason I don't know is because destroying it is not part of a cost. It's the same effect. You may destroy it and mark them, but if you can't destroy it, can you still use it to mark them? Because you don't have to destroy it to mark them. It's just you do both if you want to. So that I'm not sure of. But even then, the interaction of the flicking it to turn on Marionette on your current attack, I think makes Flick Knife still worth it. We don't know what the graphene whatevers for Orb-Weaver are, but if they're similar to the Mark of the Huntsman's, those would be really good with that interaction, since pretty much you're only playing stealth attacks other than the really good assassin attacks. So I think Flick Knives is definitely a mainstay, and I think you play at least 1 Mark of the Huntsman, but you might want to consider more in your sideboard, depending on what the Shellurays do, because you can use like Concealed Blade to bring back more Mark of the Huntsmans. None of the other equipment are really that interesting for Assassin. They're all silver-based equipment, which this is the, I'd say, hardest Assassin to get silver on. So we're not playing very much of it. Some of the cards you'll probably see inside of Arakni are just going to be the really good stealth cards. Going through all the reds, because I think you're going to be playing more reds than blues. You kind of only play the blues and new because she wants blues. Art of Desire Body seems really good. It replaces itself. If you hit a red, it's really good if it gets go again. Double Trouble comes in for a lot of damage. Infect, very similar, has a hit effect that applies more damage. Infiltrate lets you steal cards from your opponent and play them, which I think is really good for this deck. Still fits that assassin theme. Sometimes you hit something really nice you want. Isolate just has dominate. It can end out games. Pick to Pieces can pump itself. I like it more than Malign, since all of the Araknis 1 to 5 all have reaction. Well, I guess 1 to 4. You're not 3 of 6, because you're not going to use Tarantula and then Trapdoor and Orb-Weaver don't have reactions, but oh well. You're going to be playing other reactions in your deck. This could be sideboard, but I think this could be main board because it's kind of a 0 for 4. Prowl gives your next stealth attack +1, which is good because it is pretty much an 0 for 4 if you can give this go again. And then there's no other stealth attacks here, but the other Plague 0 for 3s I think could be good. And then obviously any new ones or Bonds of Attraction, I believe, is the rare, the other rare from Miss. That one's not on here, but that one can be really good too. We, of course, still have the blue stealth cards because I think they're probably too good not to play. Bonds of Agony gets a reaction innate from half of our heroes and is really good if we can get it off. We don't have the double reacts like we do in new with the equipment and with the Hiss and Venomous Bite, but we do get a lot more other stealth synergy. And then Persuasive Prognosis is just an unassuming 0 for 1 that's really good. So I don't see a reason why we wouldn't play this one. This isn't a hero that has to play reds because of Draconic cards, so we can edge in for more blues, and our daggers cost 2. So if we want to swing with our daggers, we do need some resource. Some of the other cards, some of the other attacks, Leave No Witness, Surgical Extraction, just the best assassin cards there are. I don't see a reason not to play them, especially because we are an assassin. We get access to Codex of Frailty. So those are just the core. The other cards I think are really nice in this deck. We do have a bunch of reactions. I want to start with Concealed Blade because we already talked about it a little bit. This one lets you get back a dagger, which is nice for if you play multiple Mark of the Huntsmans. If this is realistically the only way to mark, which I don't think it will be, but it's a very consistent way to mark. And it's a +1 pump and a blue into block 3, so it's not bad to play. The other ones of note are things like Razor's Edge, which is just a free +3, which is really good because you have a lot of hit effects on stealth cards, as well as on 2 of your Arachnis and your main hero. We have these Spikes, which give you an extra on-hit. They do cost 1, but I don't think that'll be a problem if you have a turn where you want to swing with the deck. I think this deck will play a lot like new. Even though you get a lot of go again from the Marionette and from the Redback, it seems to me like it'll be a good 1-attack deck. So I think cards like Double Trouble might be a little better. More than the straight aggro plan, but it depends on how much marking you get. But the Spikes are good. They're extra on hits. And then Tarantula Toxin is a new card. This is a 0-cost 3-block assassin reaction. You either give a dagger +3 or give an attack defending or a card defending an attack with stealth -3. So this is kind of your shred, but you can also pump up a dagger instead if you wanted to. You can do both. There are currently no daggers with stealth, but there probably could be in the future, which could be pretty cool. Because then you get like a 6 block. There's an anti-6 on a dagger, which would be insane. But there really is no stealth dagger, so it doesn't matter all too much. Mainly, you'll use it to pump a dagger, get a hit effect in. I could easily see you playing this to make sure your Mark of the Huntsman gets in. And it's a yellow shred, if not on your stealth attacks. I don't know if you play Yellow Shred. You probably do. But I think this card is better than Yellow Shred. So you'd have to be wanting to play more than 3 Yellow Shreds in your deck. Of course, it doesn't work with Leave No Witness or Surgical, but it works with every other attack in our deck. The last card to talk about for the cards I think are probably going to see play is Spurlocked. This is the Brody Spurlock card. Let me read it to you because it's a little wordy. This is a chaos action. It's the only chaos card we have. So the only thing we can really talk about for chaos-wise. It's 3 block, it's blue, and it costs 0. So already it's really good. And it is go again. So already 3 block, 0 costs, blue, go again. I wish this was a Katsu card. Each hero secretly chooses a number between 1 and 6. Then those numbers are revealed. The hero that chooses the highest number loses that much life and searches their deck for a card with less than or equal to the cost of the chosen number, reveals it and puts it into their hand, then they shuffle their deck. So pretty much, if you play this card, there's a ton of things that can happen. Here are the main 3 situations where this card will be good, and it is incredibly powerful in them. 1. If you have more life than your opponent, and you are obviously the aggressor because you're an aggro deck, you have more life than your opponent, you can easily say a high number like 5 or 6 to guarantee that you get an attack, because your life total at that point does not matter. You're just trying to kill your opponent. Obviously, you don't even have to get an attack. You could get a Codex of Frailty if you really wanted to, or a reaction, and just take the 5 or 6 life loss, because your opponent's not going to pick a high number because they could die that turn. Especially if the number you pick is higher than 3, which I would still go 5, 6, because if they say 3, they get a D-react. They gained a life pretty much. So I would say at least 5 or 6, so if they say 4 to try to even it out, they still can't get the D-react to even it out. And you obviously want your card in that situation to get the thing and then just attack them more, because they won't be up a card. Obviously, that's the issue. Sometimes if they win and they don't care about their life, they're up a card now. Which also makes this card pretty bad in aggro mirrors, because if you play this too early, your opponent is just going to get the best card in their deck. If they're going to say 6 or 5, and then you take 6 and it's an aggro mirror, and now you're a turn behind, which can suck. There are definitely times like that where this card can hurt you. The second good use for this card is when your opponent's very low, because you can spend a very low amount of life to get what you want, and your opponent's not going to say a high number. Obviously, they have to choose 1, right, in that situation, but they're never going to win, so they're not going to take damage, because you have to choose 1. Like, if you choose 1, you're never taking only 1 damage. Because neither of you chose, I guess both of you chose the highest number, so you'd both get the search. Which, you're never choosing 1. I think if you're playing this card, you're never picking 1. So that'll never happen. But also, if both of you choose 6, when you play this, you dealt 6 damage to them, because you don't care about your own life total. So that's good. The second use is if they're low. You pick a middling number, 3 or 4, because they can't pick that number. You get the thing to kill them. You use this, get the isolate, get the A-react for your isolate. You're in a really good spot. The final use for this card is to bluff the opponent. Make them pick a high number. Make them get a 6 or a 5 to deal a ton of damage to them. And then you come in with your, still attack to react hand and try to get damage in or take cards away from them. Which makes this card extremely versatile. I think you're playing this card no matter what at 3. Hands down, this card's insanely good. Even if you don't play it, it's a blue block 3. And since you're the aggro deck, it has all those uses. This only gets better with a increased card pool. So I can't wait to see what's in the rest of the set so we can see how much stronger this card gets, because I think this card's incredibly powerful. Moving on to some of the things I think you'll probably include or try to include in some way. Obviously, I talked about the traps. Frailty Trap and Inertia Trap are the 2 better ones. Blood Rot Trap's not that good. I think you play 2 of each of these. If not, you play 3 Frailty and 1 Inertia. I like having at least 1 Inertia, so you can tutor it if you need to. But I like a 2-2 split. We'll have to see when we play the deck, because Frailty Trap could just be way better, which it might be way better this set, because there's a lot of weapon stuff. And then I have Jested Nick here. Obviously, you're not playing many of the 1 power attacks, which is why it's not in the main board. The only ones you're playing are the M's, because you can't really guarantee you're going to get all the damage through. You might even play like blue Double Trouble, I guess, but really, there isn't the best one power attacks that Arakni actually wants to play, where new easily sees use in them. So I could see Justinic be used. I think it has a place, but I don't know if it's good enough. So personally, I don't like it, but I easily could be in the best versions of Arakni Marionette. And then there's no cards that there are 2 cards that I have in the maybe board, and those are both the Arakni specs. So Coercive Tendency doesn't do anything because we're not a contract hero anymore. And Regicide does do something because both of the new heroes are royal, which means if you hit them, they lose the game. You can give it +3 with half of your Arachnes. Well, 4 of your Arachnes. You can give it +3 with 4 of your Arachnes. It doesn't have stealth, so they won't get any of the bonus effects. And you're also, all these only target cards with stealth, so you can't use that. But Regicide could see some play. As well as you will almost assuredly die, because there's no way that you're not, like, if this doesn't hit, you'll probably die. So, only bringing it against Royal, obviously, but it's very hard to make it unblockable because you're not contract stuff. But that's going to be it. If there's any card that I forgot, let me know. I'm sure there is. I don't think generics are the best in this new Arakni because of what all the new other Arachnis do. But I'm sure there's some generics, like E-Strike's probably playable, CNC is probably good. But I don't want to talk about those because they're pretty basic. And I'm sure they'll see play, but if there's anything like specific, like I'm sure there might be an Assassin card I forgot that's really good in Marionette, or a Warrior card that'll be really good in Fang. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what deck you want to see first once we get all the cards and I start testing. Of course, I got to do the set review, which should be, we're rolling into spoiler season, so there might be one video in between, if any in between. So with that, that is going to be the end of the video. And I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.